this week, we're going to go over history and Jesus. So the historical Jesus, what we have based on records, based on archaeological findings, stuff like that. So what do historians have to say about the existence of Jesus? What evidence do we have of his life? And what facts are generally agreed upon even outside of Christianity? So we'll answer those questions, try to discover as much evidence of Jesus' death and resurrection as possible. So just a couple questions to start. Has anyone ever read parts of the Old Testament and come across the chapters that are all just genealogies and like lists of just happenings and people's parents and uncles and aunts and wars and all that kind of stuff?
Begot
exactly.
who.
Yeah. Y'all read some Old Testament. It makes you not want to read the Old Testament. Yeah.
Yeah, usually that'll throw me off.
Yeah. Why do y'all think there's parts of the Bible like that?
Because it's a historical text.
Other answers.
Oh, well, I know that a huge part of it is documenting Jesus' lineage, because that's a subplot with the demons trying to pollute Jesus' bloodline. That's where you're getting the Nephilim. That's why you have the flood.
Yeah. So, it's basically, like y'all are both saying, it's to establish the book. The Bible is more than a book of stories or an amalgamation of good teachings. These lists confirm the physical existence of the characters in the Bible, of the people in the Bible. By knowing their family histories, we understand that the Bible is far more than a mere story or a parable for how we should live our lives. These genealogies are refutable, verifiable, especially to the ancient Jews that studied this, that lived it, because back then, and even still, they are very tied to who they're related to, tracing their lineage back to Moses, all that kind of stuff. So if in the Old Testament it says this person begot this person and begot this person, if that was wrong, they would refute it and get it right, kind of thing, because it was a big deal to them. So, these genealogies point us to the fact that there was an actual man named Adam who had actual descendants, and his actual sin had actual consequences. Further on that, what's the literary style of the Bible? Is it once upon a time in the land of Narnia? Is it a poem, an essay? What do y'all think?
Well, books have different literary styles. So there are books that are poetry, there are books that are songs, there are books that are stories, there are books that are...
Yeah, but overall, like...
It's unlike anything I've read.
Yeah,
it's not
so
like really...
it's written... while different parts of the Bible have different literary styles, the overwhelming majority of the books are written as historical narrative, especially in the Old Testament. That's what the writing style is called. This happened, these people were there, this is why this happened, this was the result of this happening, etc. That's why in the Old Testament it's so full of genealogies, so full of this country invaded this country, Israel and Judah split, this guy was horrible, he killed all these people, he caused a famine on the land, all that kind of stuff. That's why it's written like that, because it's historical narrative. It's painting a picture of what happened in the past. Obviously there are books, especially as we get towards the New Testament, and we get into Psalms and things like that, that are going to be poetic, that are going to be songs, that are going to be prophetic, things like that. But talking about the Old Testament, a lot of it, most of it is going to be historical narrative. But why is all of this important? Why is it important that the Bible is historical narrative?
Its accuracy, I guess.
Yeah, so it's important because if Genesis 1:1 started off with once upon a time in the land of Nod, God created the heavens of the earth, we cut out all the genealogies and we had no records of the people in the Bible existing, then we wouldn't be meeting on Wednesdays. We wouldn't be going to church every Sunday. It'd be a fairy tale. It'd be completely made up. It'd be a farce. So while evidence, so what we're going to look at is kind of the historical evidence behind that, looking at the genealogies to a certain point, but looking at the proof that we have in the text from the 1st century and the 2nd century of Jesus' life, his existence, and what secular historians and archaeologists actually believe about him in spite or despite of the Bible, just looking outside of that. But what would need to keep in mind as we go through these weeks is while evidence is important, evidence is great, evidence can lead us to faith, it doesn't necessarily make us have faith. You can't just believe in the historical facts and be like, I irrefutably believe that this is what happened because the facts point me to there, and be a Christian. You still have to accept the Holy Spirit into your life. You have to let them change you. You have to let them, the Holy Spirit, truly change your life and change your mind in the way that Jesus enters your life and you truly make a change. So, evidence is incredibly important. It is no substitute for true faith, but it can help us lead there. So, but yeah, any questions before we kind of jump in? Cool. So, history and Jesus. So let's take a look at the evidence for Jesus' existence. So 99.9% of historians and 100% of professors with a relevant PhD in the field, meaning history, archaeology, things like that, believe that Jesus walked on the earth. This means that there is an absolutely overwhelming amount of evidence for his existence, both inside and outside the Bible. So let's take a look at the extra biblical, which means just not within the Bible sources. Go ahead.
Is that an actual figure?
Correct.
99.9%?
And then 100% of professors. You can look at Gary Habermas's, he's got a book on it. Gary Habermas is he is the guy for the life, archaeological and historical evidence of Jesus' life. He's got books and books and books. He's got 1,000-page book on it. Dude is Gary Habermas. Look him up.
I just want to make sure that was an actual figure, because so often people say 99.9%, but what they really mean is most of the time.
Yes, no,
or
you
almost
can count
always. It's
of people with relevant PhDs in the field. Not, you're a lesbian dance theory major. You have a relevant PhD. He says you can count on two hands the amount of people that do not believe that Jesus was a historical person. Okay. Not that he wasn't the Son of God, but that he just did not live. There are less than 10. And there are 0 professors at any notable institution.
I think it's probably important to emphasize that that's not a figure of speech. That's an actual number.
99.9. Yes.
Yeah.
And Gary Habermas is very poignant on that, and he hammers that home. So let's see. So we're going to look at some of the extra biblical sources, meaning not in the Bible. So these are secular. These are people that it's not Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. These are not priests. This is not that kind of stuff. So the first one is Publius Cornelius Tacitus. So he was a Roman senator and historian. He provided an account from the reign of Tiberius to Nero. So Tiberius was the emperor of Rome whenever Jesus was crucified, all the way to Nero. So 14 to 68 AD. So in this, he shows evidence of Jesus when he wrote a biography of the Emperor Nero in 64 AD. So neither human effort nor the emperor's generosity nor the placating of the gods ended the scandalous belief that the fire had been ordered by Nero, therefore to put down the rumor. Nero substituted as culprits and punished in the most unusual ways those who hated for their shameful acts, whom the crowd called Christians. The founder of this name, Christus in Latin, had been executed in the reign of Tiberius by the procurator Pontius Pilate. Suppressed for a time, the deadly superstition erupted again, not only in Judea, the origin of the evil, but also in the city Rome, where all things horrible and shameful from everywhere come together and become popular. So, this is a historian, shortly after Jesus' death, is writing basically saying, hey, these Christians that Nero's trying to kill right now, he's trying to get rid of, trying to quash them because they're coming in and replacing the Greek gods, replacing all the other gods, because they believe so vividly and so strongly in this. Trying to quench them. They believe in the Christ who walked in the time, or who was put to death by Pontius Pilate. So next one we have Titus Flavius Josephus. He's a 1st century urbane Romano-Jewish scholar, historian, and hagiographer. So he was actually born in Jerusalem in 37 AD, and he lived to 180. So the Roman historian Josephus mentioned Christ several times while relating noteworthy civic events, including the execution of one named James, the brother of Jesus, who was called the Christ Messiah. So, and I'm not going to go through every single quote here. There's even more at the end. But I just want y'all to have these extra biblical sources. I mean, we could quote this all day. But I'll read you a little bit here. So it says, let's see. Ananus, thinking that he had favorable opportunity because Festus had died and Albinus was still on his way, called a meeting, literally Sanhedrin, of judges and brought into it the brother of Jesus who was called Messiah, James by name, and some others. So this is Josephus stating that Jesus was a man he had a brother named James who was then killed. Then there's another quote from him saying, "Around this time there lived Jesus, a wise man, if indeed one ought to call him a man. For he was one who did surprising deeds, and a teacher of such people as accept the truth gladly. He won over many Jews and many of the Greeks. He was the Messiah." So this is him not necessarily claiming that he believes he was the Messiah. He's saying that these people believed he was Messiah. These people believe that he did miracles. There's rumors of this, all that kind of stuff. So we've got them both saying that Jesus lived and the evidence to prove it. And we actually have these texts, these original texts that went back and forth between Josephus and like the Romans that he was writing to. Next one is Lucian of Samosata. So they were actually a Greek satirist who wrote the passing of Peregrinus. So he wrote this about a former Christian who later became a famous cynic and revolutionary who died in 165 AD. So this guy actually is making fun of Jesus. He's making fun of the Christians. He's doing it in contempt. But note, he does not say he doesn't exist. He doesn't make fun of the Christians and be like, oh yeah, they believe in this guy that lived, but he's not real. He's not real. They make fun of them believing that he rose again from the dead. So he's accepting the fact that he lived. He's just obviously denying that he was the Messiah.
I saw that they found like Roman graffiti of Jesus like with a donkey head, and it was like making fun of him.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
it's like one of the earliest graffiti or like things.
There's a lot of satirical stuff
Mhm.
written about Jesus, and everything in the first, second, third, early centuries about Jesus isn't denying that he lived. It's
Yeah.
just making fun of the fact that like, oh, they believe so strongly in this. There's no way that he rose from the dead, kind of thing. But none of them are like, yeah, dude, y'all are insane for believing that he existed. Then another one, there's a Roman consul during the reign of Augustus sent a letter to the Roman Senate during the Roman Empire, and he basically said he was writing about the reign of Pontius Pilate, which is when Jesus was there. So there appeared in these days a man of great virtue named Jesus Christ, who is yet among us. Then we've got the Babylonian Talmud. So we've actually even got the Jewish version of the Bible, the Talmud, their holy book. So it references Jesus. It says, on the eve of Passover, Yeshu, who they called Jesus, was hanged for 40 days before the execution took place. A herald cried, "He is going forth to be stoned because he has practiced sorcery and enticed Israel to apostasy." So, based on these sources, Jesus is not denied as having existed by historians, and this is kind of why. And then at the end of everything, I think there's an additional 7 or 8 that I was able to find that are just completely secular. 7 additional extra biblical witnesses. So this is just outside the Bible evidence that Jesus Christ walked on the earth. So obviously these guys weren't Christians. Some reported happenings to the chain of command, while some mocked the faith. Note that they mocked Jesus again, not saying that he never existed. So these aren't even all of them. Like I said, there's more at the end. So there's also a good example of recently a box was uncovered in Israel that's dated between 20 and 70 AD. I don't know how they date these things. It's probably just based on the sediment buildup and other things that they found in that time in buildings that are on the same level as buried in the sand and stuff like that. But it's inscribed, this box that they found is inscribed with James, son of Joseph, brother of Jesus. So it's like we have a box from that time period with Jesus' name on it. But it's not just Jesus, because Jesus was a fairly popular name back then. It's James, son of Joseph, brother of Jesus. So that's incredibly specific to have the brother's name, and then Jesus' name. So I think that's pretty cool. So now that we've looked at the evidence outside the Bible, what can the archaeological findings of the Bible and early Christianity tell us about Jesus? So the manuscripts. According to F.F. Brews, a biblical scholar who supported the historical reliability of the New Testament, there are 9 or 10 good copies of Julius Caesar's Gallic War, which survived to this day. There's 20 copies of Livy's Roman history, 2 copies of Tacitus's Annals, and 8 manuscripts of Thucydides' history. Yet all of these men are counted as actual historical figures without refutation. The most documented ancient secular work is Homer's Iliad, surviving in 643 manuscript copies. How many surviving manuscripts of just the New Testament do we think have been found? We're going to find out. Counting just the Greek copies, and in comparison to other secular works, the New Testament text is preserved in some over 5,686 partial and complete manuscript portions, which are either kept in like museums or private collections. So a lot of these you can actually go and see. This represents almost 9 times the amount of evidence that we have for the New Testament existing during this time than we do of any other book in history, any other person that we have in history. And all of these, or the majority of these, are going to talk about Jesus because they're in the New Testament. So not even including the Old Testament, not even including the Talmud or whatever they called it back then, there's nearly 6,000 manuscripts of the New Testament just in Greek, not including any other language, from this time period. So no other work from antiquity even comes close. So these people believed this. They spread it. It spread incredibly quickly, quicker than any other religion has ever spread in the entire existence of the world. And you'd think that, hey, if this guy just died, the movement would be at least over or slowed down. But it did quite the opposite. It exploded after he allegedly died. So yeah, just kind of something to think about on that side of things. So if we actually look at all of the languages, there are, let's see, 14. There's over 14,000 copies of manuscripts that we find of the New Testament in all languages from this time period. I mean, compared to what? The Odyssey? Or what did I say? No, Homer's Iliad. There's 643 compared to 14,000. I mean, it's not even close. The amount of overwhelming evidence we have that not only did Jesus live, did Jesus exist during this time period, that the Bible has remained incredibly similar from now till back then. I mean, Wesley Huff is really, really popular. If y'all haven't seen any of his stuff on YouTube, he's awesome. He's an archaeologist. He goes through like the manuscripts and he actually helps translate whenever they find new manuscripts that are hard to read and all that kind of stuff. It is amazing just how close the translations are in meaning. Obviously, like word for word, we're talking no discrepancies. Obviously, some will say like thee and some will say thou, and just like different language choices based on Greek, Roman, Aramaic, whatever language it's in. But the actual core message, what it's saying, what it's trying to get across, has been preserved from, 2,000 years ago, which is absolutely insane. I mean, we don't have that for any other book in antiquity, which I think is super cool. So the absolutely overwhelming amount of evidence for Jesus and his impact when looked at through a secular historical lens is now before us. The facts are irrefutable. Jesus lived. Should he have not, the Christian movement would have been much easier to stave off for the rest of the world. If the people in the first couple centuries knew that Jesus never existed and we never have records of it, we wouldn't have people mocking him, making fun of him, doing graffiti. We would have people saying, yeah, y'all are insane. This guy never existed. So yeah, I think it's pretty cool. It's kind of the evidence there. Any questions, comments on that?
So I didn't know about, honestly, about how much archaeological.
Dude, it's absolutely insane. It's ridiculous. It's not even close. And that's why 99.9% of historians believe that Jesus actually lived.
That's the New Testament too. We also have like the Dead Sea Scrolls,
That's the one
which
I've only
show you about like the Old Testament.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So we're not even looking at the Old Testament, which is just, it's insane the amount of overwhelming evidence we have. And people are like, oh, it's been translated 1 billion times. There's 15,000 translations. How do you know it's right? And it's like, well, there are some translations that are too far translated to try to appeal to a wider audience that end up cutting out the message. But you take the core important popular translations, NIV, ESV, KJV, all that kind of stuff, they are word for word the same as the originals that we find from the 1st, 2nd, 3rd century.
Yeah, that's like the weakest atheist code
It's
ever.
they just don't understand.
It's crazy to think about how much effort went into to translating that many and like making all these copies back then without the printing press and stuff, like obviously it was important. Like, and I mean, we found 14,000 copies, but like imagine how many there must have been. Like, that
You didn't finish this quote.
Yeah,
but I liked it. One of the ones from he said, I don't know who said this, but he said he was the Messiah. When Pilate, upon hearing him accused by men of the highest standing among us, had condemned him to be crucified, those who in the first place came to love him did not give up their affection for him. For on the third day he appeared to them restored to life. The prophets of God had prophesied this and countless other marvelous things about him, and the tribe of Christians, so called after him, have still to this day not died out. Yeah. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's Josephus.
Yeah, that was.
So
cool.
He's probably the most well-known. I think we have the most amount of works from him out of anybody. But yeah, I mean, and this is just him reporting what the people said and believed during that time.
Yeah, that's powerful.
Yeah, it's super cool. Another thing, we can actually compile there. We've got like over 36,000 quotes from the early church fathers from like the 2nd century to the 4th century. We can combine those and almost recreate the entirety of the New Testament minus 11 verses. Just from quotes from the early church fathers. I think that's insane. That's nuts. Even if we didn't have all this evidence of full copies of manuscripts, full copies of books, or partial copies where we can see that they put them together, we've got these quotes, 36,000 plus quotes, that we can use to recreate the New Testament. I mean, that's absolutely insane. And all of them agree to an infinitesimal degree. I think that's just absolutely insane. And it's cool. That's why I like diving into this stuff, because it's like, I don't know. I hear people say, like, oh, there's been all these translations, and before I like started looking into this kind of stuff, I'm just like, okay, well, yeah, what happened if somebody did put their own opinion in there and change something 100 years later, or 500 years later, or something like that? What would happen?
But people's problem with that too is what they don't understand is that when they are translating this, they're looking at the original Hebrew or the original Greek and then making it say what they want it to. It's not a big, what they treat it like is as if it's a big game of telephone.
Correct.
As if it went Hebrew and Greek to KJV to NLT to ESV, and we're just slowly, and
Worse-
it's like,
worse than
no,
that.
these all...
Are from the earliest
yes.
manuscripts possible. We can compare them with the Dead Sea Scrolls. It's the same word for word.
Yeah, so the people that make those claims is like, look, okay, go learn Hebrew and Greek, and you can just read it for exactly
word for word,
what it is.
Good luck.
It's like they've already done it. They translated it.
They do. This is their life's work.
Yeah.
Just translating this one half-burned piece of manuscript is their entire life's work. If you want to go do it because you don't believe them, go ahead. But these people, like, if they mistranslated it or did it wrong, I mean, they would be absolutely, their careers would be over. Yeah. It's done.
Yeah. The idea that translations are like it's a big
unreliable or something like that, it's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
Because it's not like it went, this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy. No, we have the earliest one we take, it matches ours now. So it's, yes, it did. Yes, a lot of people did how we got some translations, like, I don't think KJV, but, well, maybe. Some of the early translations, early meaning, I don't know, 1200 AD kind of thing. A lot of them were, like, piggybacked off each other, translation of a translation of translation. But even those, compared to the original, are incredibly, incredibly close. Because these people take this job incredibly seriously. The people that are translating it are usually religious scholars, so they believe in it, so they want to ensure the accuracy. They don't want to tamper with anything. So yeah, I think it's incredibly cool. And it's, like you said, it's just people not knowing how it works. And the people saying, like, oh, that guy never existed. It's like, well, do you have a PhD in archaeology or history or ancient history or any kind of Israel or Jewish studies? Because 99.9% say, yeah, he lived. And the other 10 can't get a job at any university. So it's super cool. There's actually Gary Habermas is insane. He gives talks all over at campuses and stuff like that, like big lectures and stuff like that. But he quotes this one, I can't remember, I should have wrote it down. But there's this one atheist or agnostic-leaning atheist scholar he's like the utmost authority on New Testament archaeology and stuff like that. And he says, I mean, without any doubt in the world, it's like Jesus existed. And he's like, and he's written a book yelling at the people that disagree with him because just on the grounds that it's like, hey, we shouldn't believe in him because he's the Christian Messiah. He's like, no, you can't do that. You can't ignore facts because you don't want to believe in a religion. Jesus lived. Jesus died on the cross. Like, you cannot refute this. You could refute the other things that he says he did and that Christians say he does. But you cannot refute this based on this data. So, super cool that even the utmost, like, atheist is like, yeah, Jesus definitely exists.
Some of those people, you could literally show, like, an irrefutable evidence they support.
Yeah. Yeah, some people, like, it's not about the evidence. It's just like, no.
Some people don't want to believe, and if you don't want to believe, you won't. So it's like, if you're ever talking to somebody and it's like you're talking to a brick wall, it's like, do you want to believe? Are you interested in potentially changing your mind? And then people are like, oh, well, yeah, if the right evidence was given to me, it's like, what evidence do you need? So it's very, very interesting. But what can we kind of gather from all these sources, from all these people, from all these ancient writings? So we can gather that he existed as a man. Historian Josephus grew up in a priestly family in the 1st century Palestine and wrote only decades after Jesus' death. Jesus' known associates, such as Jesus' brother James, were his contemporaries. The historical and cultural context was second nature to Josephus. If any Jewish writer were ever in a position to know about the non-existence of Jesus, it would have been Josephus. Just with the people that he was around, just with the position that he was in, he would have been the one to be like, yeah, this guy didn't exist. I mean, if there was anybody. So, the second thing we can gather is that his personal name was Jesus, as Josephus informs us. He was called Christos in Greek, which is the translation of the Hebrew word Messiah, both of which mean anointed or the anointed one, as Josephus states and Tacitus implies, unaware by reporting as Romans thought that his name was Christus. This is important because a lot of people will just say, yeah, no, they didn't believe that Jesus was God, that Jesus was the Messiah until like the 10th century. I mean, that's just absolutely, just completely baseless, boundless, and it's gaining popularity. I have no clue why, because we can just go back to Josephus, who wrote in the 1st century, and it's like, yeah, they called him the Messiah. It's pretty easily refuted. But it's just because the Catholics at some council officially said, they're like, okay, these are the tenets that we believe in as Christians. In order to be a Christian church, you have to believe in X, Y, and Z. And they said that Jesus was the Messiah. So a lot of people look at that and they're like, oh, that's when we started believing it. It's like, no, that's when they were just like, hey, we're going to put this on a piece of paper on the wall. It's like, it was always implied, it was always known that you had to believe that to be a Christian, but the Catholics just decided to put it in a list because that's what they like to do. They like to give you a list of things that you must do. The fourth thing is that Jesus, that we can gather from these sources, is that Jesus had a brother named James, as Josephus reports. The next thing is that he won over both Jews and Greeks, according to Josephus, although it was anachronistic to say that there were many at the end of his life. Large growth in the number of Jesus' actual followers came only after his death. So, Josephus says, obviously, they explode. In the first quote that we have, talking about giving the account of Emperor Nero and them trying to quash out basically not Jesus' revolution, but Christianity because of Jesus' resurrection and then ascension. That's after his death. So it's showing that they've gained in numbers. The next one is that Jewish leaders of the day expressed unfavorable opinions about him, at least according to some versions of the Testimonium Flavianum and the Talmud. It's like, look, they did not like this guy. They put him to death, and they accused him of heresy against the Roman government and blasphemy against God. 7, Pilate rendered the decision that he should be executed as both Tacitus and Josephus state. 8, his execution was specifically, by crucifixion. 9, he was executed during Pontius Pilate's governorship over Judea between 26 and 36 AD, as Josephus implies and Tacitus states, adding that it was during Tiberius' reign. So now we have just from the archaeological evidence outside of the Bible, a time frame when he lived and a time frame when he died. I mean, I think that's awesome that we have evidence outside the Bible, which we don't need it. I mean, because when you become a Christian, when you accept the Holy Spirit in your heart, you feel change, you notice change, you feel God with you. You're going to change how you act, who you are. You're going to become a new person through Christ. So we don't necessarily need the evidence, but it's nice to have. It's nice to have to be able to lean to and point to, and if we ever do feel far from God, if we ever are striving to feel Him when we don't necessarily feel Him, sometimes it's nice to have some evidence grounded in reality, or not just reality, but in physical reality that we can see outside of just the Holy Spirit. So I think that's super cool that we have it narrowed down to a minimum of 10 years just based off of historical accounts like this. And then we can nail it down even further using biblical texts as to when He actually was crucified. So I think that's incredibly cool. So, no serious scholar has ventured to postulate the non-historicity of Christ, although many have tried down the years. We don't need these extra biblical sources as Christians to confirm what already bears witness in our hearts, namely that Christ was supernaturally born of a virgin, died and rose from the dead. None of this is a necessity, but God gave us evidence so that we would see and believe. When you have, so this is another thing to determine the historical truth of something in ancient history. When we have two independent sources that are from around the same time claiming that something happened, ancient historians take this as fact, or at least what the people at the time believed happened. For example, no historians doubt the following. First event, Julius Caesar crossed the Rubicon, 49 BC. Sources, we have one primary source. It's Suetonius, which was about 100 years later. Nobody doubts that. We have one source. We have one source of it. And it was 100 years after it happened. Nobody doubts it. No historian doubts it.
It's a major historical event.
Not even doubted. Just like, yep, we got that. The next, Alexander the Great's conquest, or just Alexander the Great existing at all. We have Arrian and Plutarch, which both wrote about him 400 years later. No historian disagrees. No, that's not even refuted, like, at all whatsoever, that he existed. Socrates, his existence, we've got three main sources: Plato, Xenophon, and Aristophanes. Again, nobody doubts that he lived. The next one is Spartacus's slave revolt. We have two major Roman sources, and again, everyone accepts that as historical fact. Nobody doubts it. And these are, I mean, there are hundreds of examples of things that happened during this time period from ancient history that we have minimal sources for, that nobody bats an eye at, that nobody doubts exist. So why would historians apply different logic to Christianity? The answer is they don't. So if anybody says that, like, Jesus didn't exist, he definitely did. Nobody doubts it. So we have 14 independent sources just for the crucifixion of Jesus. Just the crucifixion. Not even just that he existed, just for the crucifixion. I mean, I think that's absolutely insane. Like I said, it's more evidence than any other historical event that happened around that time or before it. And a lot of times after it too. So the overwhelming evidence is that absolutely Jesus Christ walked on the earth, lived as a man, preached, performed miracles, or at least what people claim to have seen as miracles, claimed to be the Christ, died, and people claim to have seen him risen again. I mean, it's absolutely overwhelming, the evidence that we have here. This is important because next week we're going to go over the resurrection, the evidence for the resurrection, why people, why not just people, but why historians, a lot of historians believe that it's the most likely outcome, even if they aren't Christian. But we had to kind of set the ground here. It's like, okay, we first have to have the man, and then we can have his life, death, and then resurrection. So we're going to go over kind of the theories that a lot of people have. It's like, oh, well, this is why they believe that. This is why, and just kind of like the dismissing of the actual resurrection story. We'll go over things like the empty tomb theory. We'll go over stolen body. We'll go for body doubles, which is kind of like the like Islam believes that they just switched him with some guy and that Jesus never actually died. There's a bunch of different theories as to how Jesus somehow resurrected. But we're going to go over that next week. But this is kind of laying the framework for that. And then, at the end there, we've got the 7 additional extra biblical witnesses, which are pretty cool if y'all want to go look through that. I guess the last one isn't as important. It's just, I thought it was kind of cool. That even like the Encyclopedia Britannica doesn't allude to the fact that he doesn't exist. I mean, and if it would be unconclusive if it wasn't 100% historically proven. So, any questions on the historical Jesus?
I just want to say, or not a question, but more just like a commending you. This is really cool. You laid out, like, make this into a big paper, though.
Yeah.
A lot of work.
That's how all of
you put into this. So thank you. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
Really
Well,
cool.
it just helps me keep on track of what I'm trying to
Yeah.
talk about and
Keep
not
it
ramble
organized.
for
Yeah.
hours and hours and hours
Yeah.
and hit on everything that I need to. But yeah, it's that's how every week has been. Last week was cool. If you want to go listen to it, it was super cool.
Yeah, send it. Is there a link in the chat? Or?
I think so. I'll send them.
Okay.
And then there's a Google Doc on the Discord that has all of my notes, all of these that are in there, and it's highlighted means that like that's the start of like a new week. So I've got science, morality, and then last week, and then now this week. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's super cool because I've never looked into this side of things as far as like the archaeological evidence or historical evidence for Christianity or Jesus. And you don't have to, but it's very cool that we have contemporary or ancient evidence that contemporary historians that are not Christian, that are actually atheists or agnostic, all agree upon. I think that's super cool because I would think like, before having gone into this, any agnostic or any atheist historian, because I just didn't know, I would think that they were like, he didn't really exist.
Yeah.
We don't really believe that. And I think that's how most people think. I think most people that are not Christians, or even some Christians, think that's like, the jury's out on if he ever actually existed. It's like, no, he 100% existed. Like, it's not even debated in real circles.
That's crazy. The other thing, that you used to back your argument in his existence with, I didn't know that there was only one source of Julius Caesar. It makes you think like how much was lost in the Roman Empire.
Yeah. Well, just in all ancient
It's
history.
all history.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's insane. And a lot of the stuff, what's really nice about the Middle East and is it's so dry. There's so much sand that it just completely encapsulates and preserves all of this archaeological evidence. So it's super cool. We're very, very well equipped to find more and more and more evidence.
Yeah.
And it's cool because the more evidence that we find, it leads us closer and closer to Christianity and Christ.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the other way around. You'd think that if it didn't make sense, if that Christianity was a lie, or that Jesus didn't exist, or that he was just pulling the wool over the people's eyes and that this is the greatest con job of all time, you would think that as we discover more archaeological evidence, we'd find stuff to support that.
Unravel.
And we're not.
Yeah.
We're finding more affirming Christianity.
The truth always reveals itself.
Yeah, it's just like the science thing. It's like as we look at more into science, we're like, oh wow, none of this refutes any of Christianity. And then we look archaeologically and philosophically, and it's like, oh, okay, wow. So now he's looking at your phone. Sorry about that. Why? Dude, he's looking at the back of his phone. But it's like you start piecing the puzzle together, and you're like, oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of trying to explain this with a billion different other reasonings, it's like there's one reasoning that really conveniently lines up with every other explanation and interpretation and facts that we've found, and that's Christianity. And I think that's amazing. I think it's super cool. And yeah, we're uniquely positioned as men in this time period to see that. I mean, 50, 60, 80 years, maybe 50, 60, but 100 years ago, we have none of this. I mean, it's 100% faith, 100% just doing it the old school way, which is completely fine, and the way that most people did it. But we're very blessed to have physical evidence and proof. I think it's super cool.
Yeah, this is cool.
Yeah.
I just heard too recently about the whole like, there's like way less historical evidence for like Alexander the Great and like Caesar ever existing. It's
When you
we're
look at
going
the other
through this now 'cause
religions-
I just hadn't heard about that. So
There's like one of the foremost scholars on Buddhism. He's a Buddhist. He like starts his major like it's either his thesis statement for his PhD or his or one of his famous books. It starts off saying like, we do not know what Buddha taught. We don't have any writings from him, his followers, his followers, followers, his followers, followers, followers. We have no clue what he taught. We are not like the Christians. This is what he says in the book. We are not like the Christians. We do not know what our leader taught. We have no idea. We are not like the Christians. We have to go off of what we think they taught. We have no true idea. And this guy's like a devout, good Buddhist, too. And I think that's just absolutely
That's
insane.
yeah.
Like a billion person religion too.
Yeah.
It's like, bro.
It's called the don't think about it too hard religion. That and Hinduism. It's like, trust me,
What
bro.
are we doing?
Trust me, bro. Trust me. Don't think about it too hard. Don't think about it too hard.
Just
Makes
be a
perfect
good
sense.
person, bro.
Dude.
Oh my goodness.
Hello, Rod. I
Stop,
know.
buddy.
But as we wrap up, anybody have any prayer requests or anything like that? Yeah. Well, thank God you started your job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rock and roll.
Yeah, working. So maybe
It's
a
so-
thankfulness.
I just commented on his LinkedIn.
I did.
Did you?
see it? Did
I
you
need
see
to go
that?
look at it.
I said big things ahead.
Dude,
Dude, it's so funny. One of my boys said, "Keep on shining."
Dude, it's so
I
funny
love
commenting
LinkedIn.
on
Yeah.
LinkedIn.
It's so
I wanted to post, dude, I've literally done nothing since graduation. I've done nothing. I'm taking peptides and that is it.
So yeah, we'll pray it out and we'll end.
You can make a post about the peptides.
Yeah. Excited to share my results.
Yeah, on BPC.
Alrighty. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much that we were able to gather here tonight in your name. Thank you that we were able to discuss not only the history of your existence, but just the evidence of the faith that we all cling to, Lord. Thank you so much that we are uniquely positioned to talk about that, to go over that, to discover that, because if we were 100 years earlier, we wouldn't have been afforded that luxury. And Lord, we know that our faith shouldn't be solely based on the evidence that you've given us, but it definitely is nice to lean on in times of doubt, Lord. I pray that you would continue to be with us, continue to instill in these men just the yearning and the passion for your word, to draw closer to you, to do the things that they know are right and not do the things that they know are wrong, Lord. I pray that you would continue to just bring us back week after week, Lord, and I pray that you would just be with these men as they go about the rest of their weeks. Lord, thank you for Stone's new job. Thank you that he's able to get rocking and rolling and start getting the training process done so he can show the world your glory through his work, Lord. And again, I pray that we would all have safe travels home and a good rest of our week. In your heavenly name I pray. Amen.